Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Korea University Seoul, Republic of Korea, and welcome to the 2020 Asia Resilience Center Conference. Due to the corona pandemic, we are holding this year's ARC conference online, and we thank you for adjusting to this new normal. I'm Sonam Ongel Wang, and along with Dr. Cholo Song, it's a privilege to moderate this conference. Cholo?
Asia Resilience Center, ARC, is a scientific opinion board with a bottom-up approach to long-term, sustainable, social, and ecological system in Asia. Beyond Asia, the ARC served as a bridge between Resilience Research Institute from the national scale to international scale. ARC focuses on 5 plenary issues in short word: water, ecosystem, energy, health, and food. Based on them, we investigate problems at all scale and try to find out solutions for achieving resilient systems all around the world. Having resilience thinking is the core of ARC researches, and we strongly support the Sustainable Development Goal as well. So we had the first meeting in 2018, and we have hosted the conference every year with wonderful scientific theme and great researchers. This year, our theme is Resilience in Asia, Current Status, and the Future Perspectives. And today, we have world-class speakers presenting very interesting but diverse talk.
Thank you, Dr. Song, for the very clear description of ARC. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to invite the Honorable Director of Ojung Resilience Institute, or JERI, Senior Professor Woo Kyung Lee, to kindly deliver his welcome speech.
Good morning in Seoul, and good night in Austria, where Dr. Clarkson lived there. And a good afternoon in the world, other countries. Honorable Board of Directors of ARC Conference 2020, Professor Yo-Wan Son, Korea University, and Professor Ming-Hong Wong, Education University of Hong Kong, Professor Nanti Bolan, the University of Newcastle, Professor Chao Sheng Chang, National University of Galway, Professor Brian John Wright, University of East Anglia. Honorable plenary speakers, Professor Asha Kamjina, Korea University, and Dr. Professor Florian Klaxner, IASA, and honorable speakers, participants, guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizing committee of ARC Conference, Asia Resilience Center Conference 2020, and Ojung Resilience Institute of Korea University, I'm honored to officially declare the opening of the third ARC Conference 2020 with online system. By the way of this opening, I happily welcome all of the participants and guests to the third ARC Conference and hope you're all comfortable. We are now going through a very tough and difficult time with COVID-19 all over the world. With these kinds of experience with global problems such as climate change, environmental disasters, as well as disease spread as COVID-19, we are now aware that we must change our behavior towards nature. Understanding nature is the basis of living with it together under resilient condition. Today, for the harmonious future of human and nature, we are happy to hold this third ARC conference on the theme of resilience in Asia, current status and future perspectives. Ojung Resilience Institute was founded in 2014 and affiliated to Korea University with a generous donation from Dr. Namgyu Min. Dr. Namgyu Min's selfless dream is for OZE to become a world-class institute leading research, education, and training in the field of ecological and social resilience. Today, at this distinguished gathering and on behalf of OZE and ARC members and all of us here, I'm privileged to convey our utmost gratitude to our founder, Dr. Namgyu Min. To put Dr. Min's dream and our mission into action, OZE currently hosts several organizations, such as Asia Resilience Center, Middle Latitude Region Network, Sustainable Development Solution Network Korea, Global Carbon Project, etc. I'm also happy to assure that OZE will continue to provide logistical and financial support for these front runners to conduct world-class researches and education in the field of resilience internationally. COVID-19, environmental problems, and climate change have something in common in terms of global phenomena and human responsibility. So, solution to address COVID-19, environmental problems, and climate change begs transparent collaboration with the high commitment at all levels. I believe that this ARC Conference 2020 will offer us academic friendship and sharingship of space and time through our active participation. Finally, I would like to commend the organizing committee of ARC Conference 2020 and OZE staffs for working hard to make this conference happen. And I wish you all good health and stay safe. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Lee, for kind and warm remarks. And now we have a congratulatory remark. I'd like to invite our current director of ARC, Professor Yoo Hwan-soon. Please welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to have the opportunity to deliver a few words in the ARC conference. First of all, on behalf of ARC, I would like to express our great pleasure in welcoming all of you and in hosting the conference. This conference is designed to share our experience and knowledge on current status of resilience in Asia and also to pursue future perspectives on the issue. Ozone Resilience Institute kindly sponsored the conference, and we appreciate their strong support. I will not explain the importance of the topic because it will be discussed later in this conference. Nevertheless, let me emphasize that it is our hope that this event will play a crucial role and become a small step toward the worldwide harmony on resilience and sustainable development in a rapidly changing environment. Finally, I would like to welcome and express gratitude specifically to Dr. Florian Kraxner and Professor Asia Kamzina for their generosity in sharing valuable knowledge and experience with us. In addition, I would like to thank Professors Nanti Bolan and Votan Son, Doctors Sonam Wang, Yong-ho Ko, So Kim, and Jiangzhou Yuan for their great contribution. Lastly, I would like to close my speech by expressing my heartfelt wishes for the success of this conference, and may all participants discover a lot of knowledge, ideas, suggestions, and get many benefits from the topics presented. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Johansson, for sharing with us your knowledge, experience, and wisdom. As per the agenda, we have 5-minute break. So as of now, it's 9:10, so perhaps we could all come back at 9:15. Welcome back. As per the agenda, we will meet at 9:25 a.m.
Now? Okay, so he's head of Center for the Landscape Resilience and Management and also Deputy Program Director of Ecosystem Services and Management Program of IASA. So his presentation is about mid-latitude region at risk. Please welcome Dr. Florian Kraxner.
Sorry, just a moment. I'm trying to share my screen at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, we can see your face and then your
Yes,
voice.
hello.
So,
Just a second. Let me try to get the right slides up because they got hidden just a moment ago, but I think I have it.
yep.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see your slide. Please, the slideshow mode, please.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me there at this very special conference. It's a pleasure, and I was also very happy to see the slides from Professor Cancina before, because these presentations are very much linked. Let me tell you a little bit more about our research on the mid-latitude at risk, climate change hotspots, and potential actions to strengthen the region's environmental resilience. This is a collaboration with many people. I listed a few here, inter alia, of course, Korean collaborators like Mr. Moonil Kim and Professor Woo Kyun Lee. Let me give you a brief outline here of what I'm going to show. I will set the scene a little bit with respect to climate projections, where we are and how the future might look like here for the mid-latitude, but also globally. Let me talk a little bit about the need of negative emissions and the land-based CDR technologies, particularly here, and then go into the central focus of this presentation, the climate change projections on the mid-latitude regions with hotspots, fires, forest, and agriculture, and then some take-home messages on the research needs, what we have to do in the mid-latitude region. Well, let's start with setting the scene, and you might have seen this before. I'm showing you the RCPs, the representative concentration pathways that have been designed for the fifth IPCC assessment report. And if we want to reach the Paris Agreement, we have to follow an RCP that is called 2.6, where we reach about 2 degrees and stay well below. All other RCPs will not get us to a maximum warming of 2 degrees by 2100, particularly not the RCP 8.5, which will lead us to an average warming globally of 4 degrees. And unfortunately, as you can see here, the 2019 estimates, this is more or less the trajectory we are on at the moment. So we follow this red RCP 8.5, which means that we will have to calculate with quite severe climate change in the future, unless we do something that is called negative emissions. So negative emissions, what do we need for doing that? Which means, what do we need in order to get back on the track that lets us reach the Paris goals? We need, first of all, and you can see it here with the red arrow, a very rapid and deep emission reduction in all the sectors that lead us by 2050 already to more or less net zero emissions. In addition, I have put here 2 lines. Our emissions are about here now, where I show you with the pointer. We need to first introduce the nationally determined contributions that would bring us to exactly this point in terms of emissions. And if we then reduce another 30 gigatons emissions, it would bring us to a trajectory that is ready to reach net zero emissions by 2050 and reach the Paris goals. So a lot to do, and once we are then on this track here, we need to go below zero in order to offset residual positive emissions and return from potential overshoot. This is all from the summary for policymakers of the latest IPCC report. This is setting the scene, and now let me introduce you also a little bit which technologies I see here, even under relatively strong climate impact, as useful to be applied for the mid-latitude region. The first thing is that we also quickly need to talk about definitions here. So, for instance, the special land report to 1.5 degree defined CDR, so carbon dioxide removal or negative emission technologies, as anthropogenic activities removing CO2 from the atmosphere and durably storing it in geological, terrestrial, or ocean reservoirs or in products. Durably, in this case, means mostly 1,000 years or more. It includes existing and potential anthropogenic enhancement of biological or geochemical sinks and direct air capture and storage, but excludes natural CO2 uptake not directly caused by human activities. So everything we do here also on the land-based sector needs to be in addition. We have to note here that CDR is not geoengineering and is not to be categorized together with solar radiation management or modification, SRM. Well, now back to our trajectories and how we want to make it. We can see that the biggest chunk of the emission reduction will be will have to be managed by conventional abatement technologies. This is renewable energy, switching from fossil emitting sources to non-fossil emitting sources, water, solar, etc. Also nuclear might play a role here. Then we will have still some emitting technologies in brown left over, which eventually will have to be compensated at a later stage. And we have in light blue below the zero bar the carbon removal technologies. So negative emission or carbon removal technologies, let's talk about how, what, and where here. We can see here listed the potential and the costs of different removal options. We can see DACS, direct air capture, together with carbon capture and sequestration. You see BECCS in orange, which is bioenergy together with carbon capture and sequestration, enhanced weathering, biochar applications, and you see afforestation and soil carbon sequestration. Now, all of them have different costs and different potentials. And if we just look at BECCS, we have quite high potentials of annual removals of between 4 and 5 gigatons and costs between probably 100 to 200 US dollars per ton carbon removed. And we see afforestation in the lower bar, which has only about half of the potential, but the costs are also half or even 1/4 only of that of BECCS. So these two technologies I identified as relatively suitable for the mid-latitude region. And just to explain to you again, well, BECCS is the taking up of CO2 through the vegetation. For instance, the forest trees. Forest trees are then cut and transported to an energy conversion plant where the biomass is heated off and turned into electricity or heat. And the emitted carbon is captured at the stake and put into, for instance, long-term geological storage underground. This is on the left-hand side. Afforestation on the right-hand side is planting additional trees. Also reforestation or restoration can be considered such, but it needs to be additional. So what is done with permanent forest management on the left-hand side in BECCS needs additional forest area or afforested area on the right-hand side. So either you do it through a combination of land and technology, or purely through land at the cost of more land needed. Important is here, and please don't look at the details. What I just wanted to show is that on the left-hand side, with respect to impact on ecosystem services and nature's contribution to people, or SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, BECCS has exactly two objectives: energy generation and carbon sequestration. You can see it here in the center. And then there are quite some interactions everywhere where you see these little balls here and marking here interaction with either the NCPs or the SDGs. If we move over to the right-hand side, where we can see afforestation, reforestation, and restoration, you have not only two main objectives, but 6 main objectives and many, many, many more interactions with the nature's contribution to people or the Sustainable Development Goals, which means that with afforestation, reforestation, and restoration, this land-based negative emission technology has much more synergies, and these synergies, we will hear it later again, are very valuable in order to make things happen, in order to make negative emissions feasible from afforestation. This is, of course, all published, and here I'm just showing 4 different scenarios: P1, P2, P3, P4, and what this scenario between fossil fuel emissions in bluish gray and bioenergy with CCS, BECCS, negative emission, should show you is the later we start with reducing our emissions, the more negative emissions we have to produce, which also means the more land we have to use. So all this applies now also for the mid-latitude, and the question is, where should we go with that? Where in the mid-latitude area is, for instance, abandoned, marginal, or degraded land? And now you already see that there's a lot of linkage with my previous speaker, Professor Cancina. So I promised you climate change projections in the mid-latitude regions, and let's now concentrate on forested areas and hotspots for climate change within this area. Just to set the scene again, we are talking here about the 30 and 60 degree latitude for the northern part of the mid-latitude region. And in brown, you see the mid-latitude ecotone. Of course, the same is mirrored in the southern hemisphere, but we are just concentrating on the Eurasian part here, which I'm pointing at. So this is the region of interest. And now if we go one step further, here you see the intensity of forest, or you can also say, call it above ground biomass for forest in this mid-latitude area between the 30th and the 60th latitude. And we can see already that large areas here are without very strong forest coverage. It's more bushlands, shrublands, and it's quite some desert area here, if we remember the Gobi Desert, for instance. What we did now is to identify the two main indicators for climate, which is temperature and precipitation. Here on this slide, it's all about future temperature. And on the right-hand side here, you see the calibration temperature. Red was about 24 to 31 degree average annual temperature, and in blue the other extreme is already in between -5 and even -20 degrees average annual temperature. What is interesting here is we see on the right-hand side 2050s, the 2050s and the 2070s in absolute numbers, and we see that the blue part is getting less and less, and the red part and brownish parts are taking more and more of this area. What is the most interesting here is to see the deltas, the differences between now and the 2050s and between now and the 2070s in terms of temperature here in the mid-latitude area. And it is clear that we are moving from an increase of about 3 degrees by 2050 compared to now, or 2010 to be correct. We are moving to an increase of the mean annual temperature of between 4 and 5 degrees, mostly all over this area, except for the far west here, and probably also the far east by the 2070s. So this is reality if we follow an RCP 8.5. As I mentioned before, this is the trajectory we are presently on. The same we did with the precipitation. You can see the 2010 calibration precipitation up here, and we can see that there's quite some intensive precipitation in the northern part and southern parts and western part of the mid-latitude area. If we then look at 2050, this picture is getting lighter and even more light blue in the 2070s, which means generally we are losing precipitation. And again, interesting, the deltas. The more red, the more we are losing precipitation, and you can already see that there are only a few dots here that are in blue. Blue means that we are increasing precipitation even following a 8.5 RCP. So this is the background of our analysis, and what we now try to do in our hotspot identification, and please focus on the central picture here, is to find the areas where we lose most of the precipitation and at the same time gain most of the temperature. And you will find out that we have some drought areas in the more arid and even desert areas here in Western China and southwestern Europe. There is clearly not a good growing area for forest. And we have in the forest some quite remarkable areas in the center of Europe, in the area of, for instance, Georgia and northeastern part of Turkey, around the Caspian Sea here, in the Eurasian part of Russia, also bordering Finland here, and in the most southern tip of Siberia, quite a bit west of Aral Lake, here where Mongolia and meets at the end China. So these are the hotspot areas which we identified. And now with this information, what can we do? We have to combine this, first of all, also with disturbances. Here are some calculations in gray. You see the development of annual burned area in RCP 8.5 in the mid-latitude area. That means we will go up from 8 million hectares per year to about 15 million hectares. So we will double the burned area. And I just put as a counterfactual here the 2.6 development. This is if we could go back to the trajectory that leads us by 2100 to the Paris goals, maximum of 2 degrees warming. So you see, we would gain rather little. After all, we could reduce even the fire prone area or fire burned area. So these are disturbances which we have to consider in addition that kick in when we are following these trajectories, and particularly important this will be for the hotspot areas that we identified. So just to give you the examples again, where most of the burning is expected to happen under 8.5. So again, you see the hotspots here, and it is very clear that in this area of Georgia, the Caucasus area, we will have a lot of burning, and in the southern, so to say, border regions of Siberia, Siberian, this is mostly then also boreal forest area towards shrubland further south. This is something to be considered, but it is also very important to have in mind agriculture and the related hotspots. So if we look into Eastern Asia, and you will also recognize here the Korean Peninsula as a marker here. I again identified here the hotspots areas, and we can see that the hotspot areas of the eastern part of this mid-latitude area are twofold. Some are quite heavily mixed between agriculture and forestry, and the other one is quite well covering the Gobi Desert in Western China, where there is not a lot of agriculture ongoing. However, if we widen our picture already a little bit, we see that a lot of these hotspots areas in the Eurasian part of the mid-latitude region do not only contain forest, but also, and the more reddish you see here, the higher is the agriculture land here, that we have a very important mixture of agriculture and forestry ongoing. So an assumption that we can go there only with afforestation measures in order to contribute to achieving negative emissions is not the only solution and not the way forward. What is very important to mention here also is that there are some clear losers in terms of countries and climate change, but there are also countries in the mid-latitude area that might gain in under climate change conditions. Relatively okay situations we see in the left colored column, which is about precipitation. In green are these countries which do not lose a lot or even gain precipitation in green. In the orange, this is where a lot of precipitation or relatively much of the precipitation will be lost. What is also clear is that at the same time, almost all the countries will increase their temperatures between 2 and 4 degrees on average. And there are only very few countries where this increment of temperature will be quite limited. For instance, Pakistan, For instance, some Mediterranean islands or Morocco. So what I will say here, what I want to say with that is that there will be losers and gainers, and we have to identify very carefully, and Professor Kamzina has shown this before also, and assess what we can grow where, in which areas we can really go for afforestation, or in which areas where the losses of precipitation are not too harsh. We can, with some support, even push the agricultural production to take over for other areas where we have to turn agriculture into forestry, where of course then no more food can be produced. So with that, let me come to my takeaway messages from this very first assessment with respect to climate hotspots. I have shown that we need negative emissions, or CDR, now. We have to start right away, and we need this not later when we didn't manage to decarbonize in a conventional way. No, we need this in parallel. We need to start negative emission production now, in addition to decarbonizing all sectors. Land-based negative emission and CDR options, these are, for instance, or particularly BECCS and afforestation, have a great potential also in the mid-latitude region. However, we need to identify where we can do what and how. And this means we need to link bottom-up information like sample trials on the ground, or even a step back, talking to the people on the ground what they really need there, because subsistence farmers don't want to hear about negative emission technologies, of course. They want to make enough income to send their children to school, or to produce enough food on their fields in order to eat. So we need to combine methodologies, bottom up with top down. This means mostly, from our point of view, modeling with GIS, and in the end, combining these also with trials and samples on the ground in order to get more information. But we have to be fast. Some areas in the mid-latitude are climate change hotspots. I have shown these. In addition, we have high uncertainties with respect to disturbances. This could be fire, but this could be also any kind of bark beetles, or flooding, or drought on the other end. Here we have a problem if we go into this additionality for negative emissions. If we afforest a lot of area, and the next year it's burning down, what can we do here? I also showed and discussed that some areas will lose forests or will lose agriculture, and the other way around. So some forested area will not be forest anymore. There will be more desertification. Some agriculture areas might also lose in productivity. There we can do afforestation. On the other hand, if there is enough precipitation, for instance, even under warming conditions, we could boost the productivity of agricultural areas in some places. Climate change can be favorable in some places, but we need to make our models learn to pick up these climate change effects. This is very important. Low productive agriculture, I mentioned that before, might be converted into forest through afforestation to contribute to negative emission technologies. Low productive agriculture can be boosted. And now in bold is what we would like to suggest here to do in terms of modeling. We need integrated biophysical land modeling that at the same time looks at agriculture, forestry, grassland and bushland. It doesn't make sense anymore, from my point of view, to separate these into sectors and do not harmonize and integrate as much as we can. We need to link biophysical modeling with disturbance modeling. We need to link biophysical modeling with techno-economic optimization. Also, Professor Kamsina has shown that we need, for instance, net present value assessments in order to derive the costs accordingly. Linking biophysical modeling with biodiversity assessment. This is very important. We do also restoration with respect to different objectives, but please remember that carbon sequestration is not the only ecosystem service that needs to be considered here. Co-benefits and synergies, I've mentioned this when showing the benefits and synergies of negative emission technologies with respect to SDGs, for instance. They and only these co-benefits might make some of these land-based net negative emission technologies feasible in the end. And I'm thinking here for predominantly of green jobs, the bioeconomy, circular economy, etc. And measures need to be tailor-made for each location and region. And with that, I try to convince you also here that we should start immediately, and our knowledge needs also some implementation. We cannot wait. I said this at the beginning and also here at the beginning of the takeaway messages. And this is how I imagine that we should move ahead. We have a couple of very different models on the left-hand side, like agriculture model, forest model, disturbance model, vegetation modeling, techno-economic modeling. They are doing linkages, soft linkages through these arrows, but they do not integrate in reality, and therefore we will always come up with suboptimal solutions. And my suggestion is to move towards the right side, where we have one model that combines all major land types together with insights from vegetation modeling, together with insights from disturbance modeling linked with climate change, and that also consider optimal supply chain and resilient management. And with that, I would like to thank you very much and give you a nice view on my institute here. And we have also planted some trees already ready for the climate change, palm trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Krasner, for sharing this very important and interesting study with us. Climate change impacts are felt differently across the world, even within smaller landscapes. So it is crucial to have hotspots as well as potential actions which will immensely help policymakers and scientists alike to work towards increasing socio-ecological resilience in this very important part of the world, the mid-latitude region. So with that, we now break for a smaller break. This time we have 15 minutes, so come back at 10:40. See you soon.
예. 어.
Hope you everyone come back and ready for the enjoy the next presentations. I will introduce next presentation. So please welcome Dr. Young-Ho Go from Ojeri at Korea University. He's about to present the temporal variation of surface seawater PCO2 and air sea CO2 flux in the Yellow Sea. Please welcome.
All right. Hi, thanks for having me today. So I hope next ARC will be held as an offline meeting. And I'm Young-Ho Ko, a research professor at Ojeri. And I'm working with Professor Tae Kim at Korea University. So as you know from my title, I'm studying oceanic carbon cycle. So, and I'm working for climate resilience team at Ojeri. So today I'll talk about briefly object of our climate resilience team and move on to specific research topic. So there are 3 ocean research stations in the Yellow Sea and East China Sea. It is constructed by Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology. So they are a great place to collecting seawater or atmospheric sample or to conduct the short-term experiment. So based on the measured CO2 data at Socheongcho Station in here, we examined the temporal variation of surface seawater PCO2 and air sea CO2 flux in the Yellow Sea. So let me start with this figure and global carbon budget. So human-induced emission of CO2 altered climate change by adding CO2 to the Earth's atmosphere. So during the last decades, the 2 sources of the CO2 is fossil fuel burning and land use change like deforestation. And half of emitted CO2 remained in the atmosphere and more than half is absorbed by land and ocean. So this figure is telling us the importance of these 2 natural buffer by absorbing and sequester emitted carbon dioxide. So one goal of the climate resilience team is the assessment of the regional scale carbon budget. So this figure shows the global carbon budget of land to ocean aquatic continuum. So it shows the carbon storage by land and ocean, and this figure focusing on the carbon transport from land to the ocean and the air flux with atmosphere of the inland water and coastal ocean. So we will apply this kind of estimates to South Korea, including land and coastal ocean. So we focus on the CO2 flux between atmosphere and land and atmosphere and ocean. So we are interested in these 2 terrestrial ecosystems, including agriculture, land, and forest, and last one is coastal ocean. So this evaluation of carbon cycle, especially CO2 flux between ecosystem and atmosphere. For the agricultural land, this work is conducted by Professor Seung-Hoon Hyun and research professor Won-jae Hwang. And forest work is being conducted by Professor Woo-Kyun Lee. So, and they are working on the development of sustainable management plan for each ecosystem. So for the agricultural land, they are trying to find a way to reduce the greenhouse gas emission from the farm under the predicted future climate change. And for the forest, they are also increased carbon sequestration, increase or maintain the carbon sequestration by forest. So for the coastal ocean, there's no systematic data set near the coastal ocean. So we more focus on the current understanding of distribution of carbon parameters in relation to CO2 flux and ocean acidification. So I'll skip this slide due to time limitation. And this figure shows the longest time series data of atmospheric PCO2 and seawater PCO2. So atmospheric CO2 shown in red circles shows the increasing trend from 1950s. And green dots represent the seawater PCO2. So this increasing trend of PCO2 is a direct evidence of oceanic uptake of anthropogenic carbon. So you can see the increasing trend of seawater PCO2 is nearly identical to atmospheric CO2. So measuring seawater PCO2 gives us another information about global air sea CO2 flux. So this flux is determined by wind speed and gradient of PCO2 between atmosphere and seawater. So using this PCO2 difference, we can calculate air sea CO2 flux. So, but in previous estimates, the coastal water was not included this estimates due to its complexity and sparse data. So what makes CO2 dynamics in coastal ocean complicated? So in the coastal ocean, upwelling and river input of nutrient promote the primary production and respiration in the surface water, and depth of the coastal water is shallower than open water, so sediment exchange also moderate CO2 parameter in the surface. So CO2 is also moderated by river input of terrestrial carbon. So far, coastal ocean is known as a modest CO2 sink, and the magnitude of a CO2 sink of coastal ocean is proportional to its surface area compared to global ocean. But these estimates in coastal ocean has a large spatial and temporal variability due to the limitation of PCO2 observations. So this figure shows the most recent compilation of publicly available PCO2 data in the coastal ocean. So as you can see in this figure, along the coastline of the North America and Europe, there are well sampled region was shown in this area. However, along the South Asia and East Asia, the data coverage is extremely limited. So the current extrapolation and compilation of global PCO2 data cannot exactly reflect this less sampled area, so and it should be validated using actual data in this limited data region. So this figure also shows the previous CO2 measurement in Korean coastal waters. So although the nutrient or oxygen has been measured over 5 decades in this region, but there's no historical CO2 measurement over decades. So left figure shows the transact line for PCO2 measurement carried part of Ocean Carbon Map project. conducted by Korea Institute of, there's a type of Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology. So only 3 or 4 months covered by this project. And right figure shows the recent publication. They provide the annual flux, but it depends on the only seasonal time resolution data. So I also skip this data. So here is a simple one main point. So using the Cheongcho Station, we collect sample of the Yellow Sea to examine the seasonal variation of the seawater PCO2 and air CO2 exchange in the Yellow Sea. So how often should we measure seawater PCO2 to estimate annual oceanic CO2 absorption accurately? So here is the measured data. We measured 2 carbon parameters, include total alkalinity and DIC. And using this measured value, we calculated seawater PCO2 value. So, and red dashed line represent the sea surface salinity and sea surface temperature and atmospheric PCO2. So salinity and temperature shows the seasonal change of environmental condition in this region. So temperature shows the seasonal cooling and warming trend, and salinity shows the effect of river input of fresh water during the summer, and in the winter, due to the deeper mixing, it shows the higher salinity. So first parameter, total alkalinity, is conservative parameters, so it shows the similar trend with salinity, and DIC is affected by biological production, biological carbon utilization, so magnitude of the seasonal change of DIC is greater than total alkalinity. And last one is PCO2. At first glance, the seasonal variability of PCO2 is much greater, much complicated than other 2 parameters, because it is temperature dependent parameter. Other 2 is temperature independent. So I'll explain in detail about PCO2 in following slide. So I first plot PCO2 versus sea surface temperature. The black dots represent measured value in Cheongcho Station. So it is really surprising for me. So I recently handled the subtropical PCO2 data. So in the nutrient depleted area, biological process is limited. So the seasonal PCO2, this variation in right figure is primarily controlled by sea surface temperature change. So this orange line is expected PCO2 change from the temperature change. So I expected some positive slope in our coastal data, but slope between SST and PCO2 is close to 0. It means the temperature of the effect of temperature is completely canceled out by biological CO2 utilization during the summer and overhauling during the bringing high CO2 subsurface water to the surface, increased PCO2 during the winter. So in the open ocean, we can predict or calculate PCO2 using chlorophyll or temperature. However, there's no clear correlation in the coastal water, so it is hard to calculate or predict. So here is a monthly or seasonal variability of CO2 flux. So upper figure represents the difference of PCO2 between sea and atmosphere. So during the period of a positive number, the Yellow Sea act as a CO2 source. During the period of negative value, Yellow Sea act as CO2 sink. So except for red boxes representing spring, there's no consistent pattern of the CO2 gradient or CO2 flux. So in the right figure, the red boxes indicates the spring is a strong sink, but if we get one snapshot for every season, the estimates can result in high uncertainty in the magnitude and even in the direction of the CO2 flux. So, for example, in the winter, if you get one snapshot, so you can get large positive number or modest negative number. So there are, in previous work, shows the result more clearly. So the seasonal CO2 flux variation is roughly consistent with ours, but in another study in North Yellow Sea and this single station show the same result. If you also get a single snapshot of spring or winter, so magnitude of CO2 flux is significantly different, and winter, the direction of the CO2 flux can be changed. So this result highlights that the monthly PCO2 measurement in this coastal ocean is required to estimate the annual sea air CO2 flux accurately. So we are also interested in nearshore PCO2 observation. So in this nearshore, more closer to coastline data is expected to more higher seasonal variability due to much higher biological productivity and much shallower depths and greater river input. So one example in right figure, it shows the measured value in 2015 October. So the nearshore area shows the higher PCO2 value than other offshore region. So we had collected seawater sample in these light blue dots along the coastline 4 times this year. So we are measuring the PCO2 and other carbon parameter of this data. So here is conclusions. I didn't mention in detail about the first sentence, but the Socheongcho Ocean Station is roughly representative of the North Yellow Sea with significant seasonal variations of seawater PCO2. And this study highlights the requirements of a final time resolution in monthly or shorter of seawater PCO2 to measure the annual carbon absorption accurately. And last one is direct observation with better resolution of temporal spatial PCO2 distribution are still needed for the winter or nearshore regions showing a higher spatial temporal variability. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Young Hoko, for sharing your comprehensive study on temporal variations of surface water peaks, CO2, and air-sea carbon dioxide flux in one of the most important water bodies on Earth, the Yellow Sea. Oceans cover about 70% of the Earth and perform critical ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration. Yet, the health of our oceans continue to degrade. So studies like this are urgently required to deepen our understanding of our ocean and its interactions with other elements such as atmosphere. So thank you very much, Dr. Yong. And now we'd like to welcome the next speaker, Dr. Sok Kim from Ojung Resilience Institute of Korea University, who will talk about applications of absorbents for control of harmful cyanobacterial species in freshwater body. Dr. Sok Kim.
Thank you for your kind introduction of me. Hey, hello everyone. So my name is Sok Kim. And nice to meet you, and very honored to get a chance to present in here about my results. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the topic, the absorption of absorption strategies for removal of harmful cyanobacterial species in water bodies. Okay, almost the person know the accelerating occurrence of harmful algal blooms in various water resources in worldwide have reported. Harmful algal bloom is the environmental phenomena that the colonies of the specific harmful algal cells, like microcystis or Anabaena species, are overgrowing in the water bodies. The eutrophication in water bodies and increasing temperature caused by global warming and reducing flow rate due to the artificial water environment changes are recognized as the main factors for the occurrence of the harmful algal blooms in the freshwater bodies. Harmful algal blooms negatively affect to the water environment. When harmful algal blooms appeared in the water bodies, oxygen level in the water body is decreased due to the naturally degradation of the dead algal cells. Thereby, water creatures cannot survive. In addition, harmful algal blooms can give not only environmental damages but also economic losses to various industrial areas such as water management, fishery, and tourism. The other problem of the harmful algal blooms is releasing various cyanotoxins into the water bodies. The released cyanotoxins during the harmful algal blooms are dependent on the main cyanobacterial species, but the microcystins are the commonly detected cyanotoxin, and when exposed to microcystin by various exposure routes, can cause liver damage of the human. Therefore, to manage water resources sustainably and safely, the harmful algal blooms should be controlled in the water bodies. To control harmful algal blooms, the various physical, chemical, and biological methods have been applied. These methods, especially chemical methods using algicides and coagulants, that can effectively remove the harmful algal bloom species from the water body. However, the technical limitations to such are still remains, such as possible impact to other organisms in aquatic environments and the possible releasing of the cyanotoxins during harmful algal blooms control. Absorption method can remove the target pollutants using various materials as absorbents, including bio-based materials like waste biomass. The surface and the shapes of the absorbents can be designable considering properties of the target materials and environmental conditions. In addition, no chemical additives are required during the absorption process, and the pollutants loaded used absorbents can be recovered rapidly after the absorption process. According to previously reported study, the target pollutants in this study, microcystis aeruginosa cells, have the various type of the cationic and anionic functional groups on their surface. By the protonation of these functional groups, depending on their pK properties, the surface of aeruginosa cells can be negatively charged in the aquatic environments. So we hypothesized that negatively charged aeruginosa cells can be absorbed on the positively charged surface of absorbents by electrostatic attraction mechanism. Therefore, in this study, we attempt an absorption strategy for harmful algal blooms control using cationic functional groups possessing absorbents. First, we developed the absorbents using industrial waste biomass. The waste biomass was immobilized with the polymer matrix and fabricated as fiber foam. In addition to enhanced cationic binding site on the fiber absorbents, cationic polymer, polyethylene imine, was coated on their surface. The developed absorbents, polyethylene imine coated polysulfone biomass composite fiber, was applied to aeruginosa cell removal tests. Aeruginosa cells were cultivated with absorbents, and the cell number was conducted during the test, counted during the test. The control sample that aeruginosa cells cultivated without absorbents shows the continuous increasing aeruginosa cell density profile in the non-modified absorbents applied sample. The similar cell density profile with the control was observed. However, in the PI-PSPF applied sample, the aeruginosa cells were continuously decreased. And after process, the color of solvents was changed to green, the typical color of aeruginosa cells. And it indicated the aeruginosa cells successfully absorbed on the developed solvents. Therefore, we observed the solvent surface before and after aeruginosa cell absorption using SEM analysis. From SEM analysis, the surface of used solvents, the spherical shape of the absorbed aeruginosa cells could be observed without any cell damages. This observation result indicated that the absorption strategies can prevent discharging of the cyanotoxins during the harmful algal bloom control process. In addition, from the comparison of the essential nutrient phosphorus for aeruginosa cell growth in the samples, we could find that the phosphorus concentration in the samples, in the solvent-treated samples, was almost maintained as similar with initial states. However, in the control sample, the phosphorus level was significantly decreased due to the continuous growing of the aeruginosa cells. It indicated that the absorbed cells on the solvents no longer exhibited the biological activity to thrive. We attempt the additional modification of developed solvents to increase absorption performance more and more. So, actually, although the cationic binding sites were introduced by PEI coating on the developed solvents, the anionic functional groups, like carboxyl groups, so which is derived from the composited biomass, and it can interfere the cell absorption by electrostatic repulsion is still remaining in the solvents. Therefore, by esterification reaction, the activation to negative charge of carboxyl groups that was blocked. Another way for additional modification, the algicide peptide was applied. The prepared two-type solvents were tested for aerogenous removal, and the result showed enhanced cell removal performance compared to the original developed solvents. As another solvent for control of harmful algal blooms, we applied the chitosan-based solvents. The chitosan was fabricated as a fiber solvents by simple immobilization process. And fabricated chitosan fiber showed above the 80% of the aerogenous cell removal rates, and removed cells also observed on the surface of chitosan fiber. Because aerogenous cell absorption mainly occurs on the solvent surface due to the aerogenous cell size, the surface area of the solvents was important factor to determine the cell removal efficiency. From the cell removal test using solvents with different thickness, we could confirm that the cell removal rate was increased as decreasing solvent thickness due to the increasing of the solvent area, surface area, as a decreasing thickness. To directly apply solvents for harmful algal bloom control into water environment, the environmental impact of the applied solvents must be ensured. So we evaluated the toxicity of the chitosan fiber using Daphnia magna. From the toxicity test, above 95% of Daphnia magna was survived in the chitosan fiber's existing condition. Therefore, we could confirm that the chitosan fiber could be directly applicable non-toxic solvents into water body to control harmful algal blooms. Another noticeable thing was that chitosan fiber could simultaneously remove cyanotoxins during aerogenous cell removal test. The typical cyanotoxins, microcystin era, can be negatively charged in the aquatic environment due to the presence of the carboxyl groups in their structure. As the same removal mechanism of aerogenous cells, the anionic MC-era molecules might be absorbed on the cationic binding sites of solvents by electrostatic interaction. We also applied the synthetic polymer-based solvents for the harmful algal bloom controls. The PEI was composited with polyvinyl chloride and fabricated as a fiber solvent PEI-PVC by following procedures. And we confirmed the cationic functional groups were well loaded in the PEI-PVC by XPS analysis. And the PEI-PVC could remove almost 90% of aerogenous cells within 5 hours. In addition, the used PEI-PVC fibers that could be regenerated by alkaline solution treatment and sonication. and the regenerated surface of the PEI-PVC was confirmed by the same analysis. For 3 times of the reusing processes, the 93% of adsorpted aeruginosa cells were desorpted from the used PEI-PVC. The also regenerated PEI-PVC was maintained above 83% of cell removal performance compared to that of the first use solvents. To determine application potential of the PEI-PVC to remove aeruginosa cells under natural conditions, we gathered the real water samples from a harmful algal bloom occurred area and applied the PEI-PVC in this water samples. PEI-PVC could remove the algal cells from real water samples, and adsorpted algal cells could be observed on the PEI-PVC surface. And therefore, we could confirm that the adsorption strategies might feasible methods to harmful algal bloom control under natural condition. Okay, finally, the summary of this presentation. Harmful cyanobacteria species of Microcyst aeruginosa could be removed by cationic adsorbents, and the amount of cationic binding sites and the surface area of adsorbents are important factors for determination of harmful algal blooms removal efficiency of adsorbents. And cyanotoxins could be simultaneously removed by adsorbents during harmful algal bloom removal process. And lastly, we could confirm that the adsorption strategy might a feasible way to directly remove harmful algal blooms under natural conditions. I'll finish my presentation here. Thank you for your attention.
Dr. Seok Kim, thank you very much for the wonderful and valuable presentation. As you know, biochemical cycle is quite an important measure to secure the resilience in wetland and ocean ecosystem. He presented about biophysical treatments, kind of bioremediation, am I right? So using bacteria for good environment of water. It looks to have a great potential to enhance the resilience. So we'll move on to the next presenter. Okay, so Dr. Sonam Wang, our moderator from Ojari Korea University. He will present about mid-latitude region network.
Thank you, Dr. Song, for the kind introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, again. 안녕하세요. We have already seen few studies from the mid-latitude region this morning, and it only highlights the importance of the region. As Dr. Krasna has already pointed out, mid-latitude region lies between the 30 and the 60 degrees latitude. And it also hosts about 50% of the world population. This high population combined with semi-arid to arid landscape makes the mid-latitude region very vulnerable to the slightest changes in the global environment, including climate change. So to present the mid-latitude region network, I would like to start by taking you on a peek into the mid-latitude region network, followed by the composition of the mid-latitude region research team. And then I will present the preliminary findings of the review study on the mid-latitude region using the water, food, energy, and ecosystem framework. So as I already mentioned, the mid-latitude region is challenged by socioeconomic and physical characteristics that limits a lot of the production. For instance, water consumption is a very big problem in the mid-latitude region. Mid-latitude region is water scarce. Lakes and springs and rivers are drying. There is unpredictable precipitation. Water demand is, of course, then expected to grow by 70% in the next 20 to 50. Energy consumption is also suffering a lot in the mid-latitude region. Large proportion of people in the mid-latitude region lack access to energy, with primary source remaining the biomass. And you know what that means. There's a pressure on the natural resources. This demand is expected to increase by 50% in the next 2050. Food consumption, on the other side, is also in a trouble. A lot of the farmers in the mid-latitude region are smallholders, practicing single cropping, which are annual. And these are compounded by poor soil structures, pests and diseases, as well as disaster. The state of ecosystem is also highly degraded, leading to low resilience, as we have already seen from some of the previous presentations by Dr. Krasner and Professor Kamsina. Climate change, with melting of glaciers, snow, and ice, is also leading to fast depletion of sustainable water sources, affecting agriculture, energy production, and other ecosystem services downstream. Further, with high population in the mid-latitude region, there is unsustainable harvesting of natural resources, leading to deforestation, land use and land cover changes, loss of biodiversity, human-wildlife conflicts, and increased desertification, drought, and rapid urbanization. The existing studies exist in silos, and there has been no coordinated effort to exchange best practices across the region. No particular attempt in particular were made to quantify how water, food, energy, and ecosystems operate and ascertain their relationship with Sustainable Development Goals. So from this perspective, the mid-latitude region network was established in 2017. However, the groundwork started 3 years before, in 2014. And that has, over the 3 years, led to the establishment of the mid-latitude region. And till today, the mid-latitude region has convened over 11 expert group meetings, leading to accumulation of large body of scientific literature, as well as projects and networks. Today, the mid-latitude region networks have grown. We have over 180 experts registered with the mid-latitude region, including young scientists across 23 countries. Wait, this is going up and down a bit, so excuse me. Why is the presentation going up and down? One second, I lost the presentation, so I need to find it. Okay, thank you. I got it. So I need to go back. All right. Okay, thank you. Can I go back and forth on the presentation? All right. Okay. So so the mid-latitude region has four broad goals. The goal one is to sort of promote the partnership and coordination among the member countries and the research members And 2 is to use the state-of-art in technology and methods to improve comparability of research results across the sites from the mid-latitude region. And goal 3 is to deliver scientific information to scientists, policymakers, development agents, and the public to make science-based decisions. And finally, of course, to support capacity building of our young researchers for the future. So at Korea University, we have then formed the research team to take these goals forward. The research team, called the Mid-Latitude Research Team, is composed of experts from Korea University with help from few professors, Professor John and Professor Yang. And we focus on the developing of water food energy nexus, review of researches in the mid-latitude region, international networking, and global researches. And we are also part of the larger Ojeri Research Network, and Ojeri has, at the moment, 5 thematic areas for research, including the mid-latitude region. And our studies are, of course, geared towards looking at how best we can increase socio-ecological resilience in the mid-latitude region. Okay, so the study is based on the principle and assumption that the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus interact with each other and lead to relationships with SDGs, ultimately leading to climate action. And as I mentioned already, there are 3 major sort of objectives within the research. One is to develop the SDG and the Water, Food, Energy Nexus Index platform to continuously upload information and make it available to the member countries and member experts. And the next one is to review the existing research in the mid-latitude region to find relationships amongst the nexus, as well as to develop interactions with the SDGs. And finally, of course, to build the international social network. And all that, of course, leads to the contribution to SDGs by connecting water, food, energy nexus and the Sustainable Development Goals. So here I briefly present the findings from the review. So using the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus framework to identify critical relationships with Sustainable Development Goals in the mid-latitude region. The study attempts to review and analyze existing literature about how water, food, energy, and ecosystems operate and interact, and its relationship with Sustainable Development Goals in the mid-latitude region of the world. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the premise here is how the nexus interacts with itself, and then look at the relationship with SDGs leading to climate action. So we use a very simple data collection format which focuses on the narratives in the published papers, and it also identifies the relationships with SDGs, its description, and of course then collect the references. So overall, we identified 37 different relationships between the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus and its interaction with the SDGs. Of the 37 nexus, each one, if you look at, you can see whether the relationship is positive or negative. For instance, if we look at food and oil price, it has positive relationship with SDG number 2 and SDG number 7. And likewise, you can look through the whole list and see which nexus has what kind of relationship. Some relationships are negative, some relationships are positive. And these have been then combined into 8 major relationships. So the first one we have here is the food and energy relationship. With primary variables, we looked at our oil prices index, biofuel consumption. The second one is water and food, where we look at irrigated agriculture, energy-driven agriculture, intensification. Relationship 3 is energy and water, development and use of water resources, the necessity of water for energy production. And relationship 4, we look at water, food, energy, and food security. So, and then we also look at water and ecosystem relationships, the impact of deforestation, etc. So this goes on to the number 8. So this is a preliminary finding, so I'm just going very quickly over this. So this is another example of the details behind the 8 relationships that I talked about. So without further ado, I want to summarize the preliminary finding. As you can see, the mid-latitude region network is well established, and we are right on track to achieve our goals and objectives. And from this little review study, we can confirm that the existing studies exist and that there is a need to coordinate researches and effort to improve resilience in the mid-latitude region to accelerate sustainable development goals. Agriculture is becoming increasingly energy intensive through increased use of fertilizers, machinery, and groundwater pumping. Energy has also become essential for development and use of water resources, ranging from desalination, mostly for drinking water, to groundwater pumping for domestic, industrial, and particularly irrigation uses. And the list goes on. And since this is a preliminary study, I'm only presenting this much and stopping here. And I want to thank everyone for your attention.
Okay, great insight about the middle latitude. Thank you, Dr. Wang. So he presented about water, food, energy problems in mid-latitude region. And as you know, this region is the place that we actually live. So keep a good environment in this region is really important, I think. The good environment around us make us this region still resilient, but we faced climate change, land conflicts, and also collapse of the ecological cycle. So it was great review and overview to know current environmental status. So before we are going to the final presentation, let me summarize a little bit for today's presentation. So we are starting from the RRC, kind of a case study of the current degradation, and we move on to the world issues like climate change. So we figure out the important techniques like negative emission and BCCX, etc., in relationship with the land management issues, including forests and agriculture. To enhance the resilience in this region, we also need to focus on ocean and water ecosystem. So next, I think we have to deal with some waste issue, I think. So am I right, Dr. Wang? Okay, so I would like to introduce Dr. Xiangzhou Yuan from Korea University. Please welcome. The presentation title is Upcycling Plastic Waste for the Climate Change Mitigation in Plastic Pandemic Era, the COVID-19.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Xiangzhou Yuan, from Korea University, research professor. Thanks, Chairman, to provide this good opportunity, so I can here share our recent work. Today, I'm going to give a talk on upcycling plastic waste into post-carbon for climate change mitigation. In addition to this part, I would like to briefly introduce the APRU platform and also current plastic issues. And finally, the take-home message will be provided. Firstly, I would like to show you one short video to introduce APRU platform. And also for this video, you can YouTube, and also you can Google APRU video. You can get more information from the website. And in addition, I would like to highlight the Sustainable Waste Management program, which was set up by earlier of 2019. And now this program are led by Professor Yong-Se Oh from Korean University and William Weech from Stanford University and David Wu from Nanyang Technological University. For more information, I would like to recommend you to search APRU Sustainable Waste Management using your PC or cell phone. As mentioned by previous several speakers, for the current plastic issues, we also paid more attention due to COVID-19. We just wrote one letter in Science titled COVID-19's Unsustainable Waste Management. To address the overflow of medical waste, the affected countries should install mobile treatment system near hospital and health care center. Most importantly, protecting waste management chains will help achieve sustainable cities and communities as outlined in UN SDG. And also we highlighted microplastics' role in antibiotic resistance. Although scientists have made important strides in understanding the direct effect of microplastic on animal and plant life, however, the indirect effect of plastic pollution still remain unclear. So the evaluation of both direct and indirect effect of plastic pollution to fully assess the environment and public health risks should be performed urgently. In addition, I would like to share one more letter titled as Accumulation of Plastic Waste During COVID-19. Professor Adai made a conclusion that without a concerted effort to protect the environment during and after the pandemic, we are unlikely to meet the United States SDGs. So we can find that the plastic pollution is already beyond humans' imagination. In other words, plastic binge as dangerous as climate change. Generally, we consider environmental pollution caused by plastic waste and climate change caused by CO2 emission. These two environmental issues as two urgent but stand-alone environmental issues. Although through upcycling plastic waste into porous carbon and then used for CO2 capture, those two environmental issues could be mitigated simultaneously. Recently, the adsorption has been considered as promising technology for CO2 capture due to its low energy consumption for solvent regeneration and high feasibility for commercial application, and also the mild operating conditions. And among all kinds of solid solvent, the active carbon, we call it also porous carbon, shows some advantages. Firstly, the low cost, because especially the carbon precursors could be solid waste and stable mechanical and chemical properties and well-developed pore structure. For considering the carbon precursors, we are focusing on the plastic waste, plastic bottle. As we can see, it is commonly used in our daily life. Could you imagine humans produce almost 20,000 bottles every second? So in our work, we paid more attention to upcycle PET bottles into first carbon for CO2 capture. Based on this methodology, firstly, I would like to explain how we can effectively convert solid waste into first carbon. Carbonization and activation is usually used for developing first carbon. First, the carbonization could be performed in inert gas condition at high temperature. After that, we could do physical or chemical activation at high temperature for enhancing the textural property. After we get this kind of first carbon, the surface area could reach around 2,000 or even over 3,000 square meter per gram. Based on this methodology, the PET plastic bottle was carbonized at 600 degrees and then activated at using potassium hydroxide and sodium hydroxide at 4 different temperatures. Finally, among all those 8 samples, we found that PET QH 700, which means activated by QH at 700 degrees, the sample shows the best CO2 absorption performance. The related work has been published at chemical engineering journals. I would like to show you more information. From this semi-image, the well-developed pore structure could be clearly seen. And we list the textural properties such as PET surface area, total pore volume, and macro pore volume in this table. And in left bottom figures, those CO2 absorption performance. We found that, as mentioned in previous slide, the CO2, the PET QH 700 shows the best CO2 absorption, but and it was to be noted that the CO2 uptake is not directly related with textural properties such as surface area and pore volume. So further investigation was performed. We list the cumulative pore volume limited by the narrow pore size, such as 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 nanometer in this table. We figured out that a very good linear relationship between the CO2 uptake and the cumulative pore volume limited by the 0.8 nanometer. That's because if the CO2 the kinetic diameter of CO2 molecule is 0.33 nanometer. So it means the pore size should at least 2 times higher than CO2 kinetic diameter, which is the most effective and important for this CO2 absorption. And also we considered the environmental impact. We further did the life cycle assessment. We basically, the PET plastic bottle was produced and used and disposed. We recycled the disposed PET plastic bottle and into active carbon and used for the CO2 capture. The system boundary, as shown in the following figure, we consider the production, PET bottle production and collection and activated carbon production, and also CO2 capture and disposal, this whole chains. Based on this research, we finally get the conclusion. This upcycling PET plastic bottle into CO2 absorbent could achieve the closed carbon loop. This related work has been published at Green Chemistry and also highlighted in the back cover. From this slide, I would like to give the take-home message. Considering our recent work, we can recycle the solid plastic waste and from our city, from ocean and sea, and which can be used for the CO2 absorption. So we can find that this kind of work is really beneficial to meet the UN SDG goals, such as the Goal 11, sustainable city and communities, and the 13 goals, climate action, the 14, life safety and water, life on land, 15 goals. In addition, we are familiar with the 3 R's from sentence, which is reduce, reuse, recycle. But now we need to update with 3 new more R's, which starting with refuse. Refuse, it means refuse single-use plastic, refuse and plastic which you don't need, refuse straws, refuse coffee cups. So think critically what you need. If you cannot refuse it, then reduce it, reuse it, recycle it, as we mentioned in the old 3 R's. For the rethink and redesign, we need to change our think, because we live in a society which don't put more high value on the second-hand good. So we need to change this. And on a broad scale, we need to rethink about the linear model of make, take, dispose to a new model which is more circular in nature, to which we could think about the end life of product, which is just right at the beginning. So for the more information, you can YouTube microplastic are everywhere. You can see some interesting but impactful videos. Here I would like to promote our nature event, which hosted by the Korean University. Today afternoon, we are having one nature forum on plastic and sustainability. Hope you can join this forum and provide your comment and question during the panel discussion. Next year, Korean University also will host one nature conference with the management and valorization for future, for sustainable future. So hope you can join this event together with the editor from Nature Sustainability, Nature Electronics, Nature Nanotechnology. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Okay, Dr. Yuan, thank you very much for the presentation. And yes, it is true that we more use the disposable product during this COVID-19 and microplastic issues, and also accumulation of the plastic in the soil. These kind of things are really what we faced, kind of the plastic pandemic. So many thanks again, and to share the possible solution that also absorb the CO2 as well. So from now on, we will have a break. So hope you take your time until 12:10. So it's about 20 minutes. And after that, we will start the panel discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome back, and I hope you all are not too tired. We will now begin the panel discussion. And to lead the panel discussion, I would like to invite Professor Johansson to kindly chair the session, please.
Hello, again, this is Johansson. Thank you for joining us for the discussion session. I have a short announcement about questions and comments from audiences. If you have any comments, please log on the site, and then we can have your questions or comments from the site. For the discussion session, previously we planned to have two panelists, one from Australia, Professor Nanti Bolan, the other one from Vietnam, Professor Vo Tan Son. Unfortunately, we have a technical problem from Vietnam side, so I'm sorry to say that Professor Vo Tan Son is not attending the discussion session. We have all panelists and speakers online now, so I'd like to invite first Professor Nanti Bolan for discussion. Professor Bolan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me too?
Yes, perfect. Would you please do your comments or questions toward all speakers or any suggestions for the topic of the conference? Please go ahead, Professor Bolan.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be one of the panel members. I've been listening to all the presentations. There were some amazing presentations by leading researchers. It may not be possible to make comment on every presentations. So therefore, I just make some comment on the presentations in which I'm very familiar about. Starting with Professor Florian's Kraxner. Sorry, my pronunciation is wrong. So that was a very fascinating presentation, the various approaches to reduce greenhouse gas emission in relation to carbon storage in soil, for example. Our group is doing a lot of work on carbon storage in soil. Professor Florian Kraxner has explained that we need to have an integrated approach instead of focusing on one particular approach. As you know that Australian soils are pretty low in carbon. Our carbon content is less than 2%. In many cases, less than 1%. We don't have the luxury of carbon in New Zealand or even Europe or North America. So our carbon content is very low for the obvious reason that whatever we add, it will be burnt out because of the tropical environment. So it is not easy for us to store much carbon. So therefore, our government is putting a lot of effort in storing carbon as a strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emission. More importantly, by storing more carbon in the soil, we improve the soil health and soil fertility. That means we grow more crops. So when you grow more biomass, you sequester more carbon. So that's the approach our government is taking. It's not in relation to carbon credit. the government is very proactive in improving the soil health. Now, as you know, that Australia is facing a severe drought, and by having more carbon, we can manage drought because carbon can increase water retention. Thereby, you can have create drought resistance. For these reasons, the Australian government is very, very pro about improving soil carbon as a strategy to manage to offset greenhouse gas emission. Then I was listening to a presentation on algae, how you can use algae to mop up some of the CO2. In relation to plastic, we have been doing a lot of work on plastic, which is a major research activity in many countries, including Australia, mainly in relation to microplastic and nanoplastic. Then I was listening to the management of desert. Again, Australia is almost like a desert, and we are very careful in managing soil, mainly to avoid soil erosion by some of the techniques Asia has proposed. So these are some of my preliminary comments, but we can go to, later on we can go to individual presentations. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Professor Bolan. I hear some comments toward several speakers. First one was with Dr. Kroxner. Second one was toward Dr. Yuan, and the final one was toward Dr. Sok Kim. So I would like to invite Dr. Kroxner for additional comments toward Professor Bolan's comments. Dr. Kroxner, can you hear us?
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Bolan. Nice meeting you again. So you're right. I didn't pay enough attention to the soils in my presentation. Even though that actually soil should be always considered, and I think this is anyway the center of life, and with whatever management we do on land, we deal with soil. And you know of the 4 per mile activity, for instance, which is a very good, from my point of view, a very efficient and effective promotion activity. And on the other hand, of course, the goal to improve soil organic carbon sequestration is part of a negative emission technology suite that we should apply. And I didn't particularly point at that, but actually soils promise the largest potential for negative emissions, to my knowledge, and also at fairly cheap costs, definitely cheaper than any direct air capture or whatever very technology-based solution, including BECCS. So from the costing point of view and from the potentials, we definitely should always talk about soil melioration, soil improvement, and afforestation wherever we have no better use for the land. However, you know that we have to be very careful here. The discussion and with all the rights, the criticism of using a lot of land instead of producing food is always out there, and therefore we have to be very careful in our optimal selection of the right place for the right activity. Again, I have to support you, and with that the decision of the Australian government to invest and improve carbon sequestration in soils is one of the best things you can do. Thanks a lot for the comment.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kroxner. And then I would like to invite Dr. Yuan for additional response or comments toward the Professor Bolland's. Dr. Yuan?
Yeah, thanks to the comment from Professor Poland. Glad to see you again here. Yeah, I totally agree with your comment. But for me, my background is chemical engineering. So for dealing with those kind of plastic waste, we can, from engineering perspective, we generally do thermochemical conversion, such as pyrolysis and gasification. We can effectively convert those plastic waste into value-added products such as syngas and biochar or porous carbon, as mentioned in my talk. And also recently, we are also trying to do some plasma gasification for the use and kind of plastic waste. Something we are going to do is we want to recover, collect the plastic waste from the soil, and then we want to upcycling this kind of solid waste, solid plastic waste into value-added product. As we know, we are considering that probably the soil will be the biggest container of plastic waste compared with the ocean. So if we could effectively collect the plastic waste from the soil, and not only the soil property will be improved, but also those kind of solid plastic waste can be further upcycled into value-added product. So we can build a more circular in nature. So this will be good and beneficial to achieve the UN SDG goals. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yuan. Dr. So Kim, can you hear us? Dr. Kim?
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Okay, good. Do you have any comments or response toward Professor Bolland's?
Actually, I didn't know about the soil actually. So yeah, in my case, I'm nothing to the comments. Sorry.
He was asking you about the algal biomass, and that would be very useful way to reduce greenhouse gas. So do you have short comments about algal biomass? Dr. Kim?
So actually, algal biomass, yeah, I agree that algal biomass is a very useful to reduce the CO2 in the air, but actually, the cultivation so for use the microalgae for the reducing CO2 in the air, we must to improve the algal biomass cultivation technology, or for the enhancing the improvement amounts. But in this so I'm sorry about, but in my case, I focusing remove the microalgae from the
All right. Thank you, Dr.
especially
Kim.
not algae, cyanobacteria. Yeah.
All right, good. Algal biomass is again very important for greenhouse gas reduction, and new technologies to improve production of algal biomass will be necessary in coming years. Thank you, Dr. Kim. I have one question from the audience. The question is toward Professor Nanti Bollan. Could you share your perspectives on soil resilience in Asia in terms of plastic pollution? Professor Bollan, did you get the question now?
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Son. So nice to see you. The majority of the issue with plastic is most of the research on plastic is the contamination in the ocean or in the aquatic system. However, the majority of the plastic comes from land-based system. So from land, it ends up in ocean. But the difference between ocean and land is, in the ocean or in waterways, plastic is a major substrate or major solid material which can take up the contaminants, which can harbor microorganisms. So the plastic can move in the water. So therefore it acts as a vector for contaminants. Of course, you have sediments in ocean, but sediment settles down. So they don't move much. Whereas the microplastic, along with the contaminants and the microorganisms, can move and serve as a vector transfer. Whereas in the case of soil, you have other solid components like sand, silt, and clay. So the plastic may not be the major vector for contaminants movement in soil. So therefore, the research on plastic in soil is much limited compared to the research on plastic or microplastic in ocean. Nevertheless, the United Nations reports very clearly says 80% of the plastic in the waterways, in the ocean, comes from land during erosion, except people can throw plastic to the ocean or waterways. Even whatever in the beaches, we consider as part of the soil. So what I'm trying to say is, although majority of the plastic is derived from terrestrial system, but the environmental consequences of plastic is much more in the ocean, simply because they provide the platform for the transfer of contaminants and microorganisms, what we call vector. Whereas in the soil, plastic may not be a major environmental issue. Nevertheless, nanoplastic can enter plant system. Professor Matthew Relic from Germany has written some fantastic publications on the uptake of nanoplastic getting into the plants then it can reach the human food chain. So I think there is not much work has been going on plastic in terrestrial system. I'm so happy to see Korea University has initiated a number of projects on plastic in terrestrial in soil system under the guidance of Professor Oak and Professor San and a number of leading researchers. So my final message is plastic contamination is very important both in terrestrial ecosystem, which is soil, and aquatic ecosystem, which is marine system or ocean. However, the environmental implications of microplastic contamination is likely to be more complicated in the aquatic ecosystem compared to terrestrial ecosystem. Thank you, Professor San.
Thank you, Professor Bolan. We really appreciate your insightful comments and perspective on plastics. As you mentioned, Korea University is hosting plastics seminar this afternoon with the Nature Forum. So some of you may join the forum this afternoon. As you understand, our conference theme is Resilience in Asia, Current Status and Future Perspectives. I know Professor Kamzina has long experience in working in the RRC area. Along the line, I would like to ask Professor Kamzina about her insights on resilience of dried RRC bed. What is the current status and what will be the future perspective? Of course, you explain in details during your presentation. I would like invite you to summarize or ask your few words about resilience in RRC area. Professor Kamzina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Would you speak a little bit loud?
Question. The perspective of the resilience should include the entire landscape perspective or the basin perspective. As I tried to explain, the desiccation of the Aral Sea and the tendencies which are observed in the irrigated areas where water was diverted are very much linked. So that should be on the background of the setting of the research priorities. Also, there is need for the integrated assessment of the integrated options for water and land use. More attention should be paid to the transboundary management of the shared water resources. From my personal perspective, also more attention is needed to be paid to capture the ecological processes which are currently in place in the Arakum ecosystem itself. It's a very interesting place for the resilient research because of the opportunity to study the primary succession, learn from the nature, and also readjust the land management practices there.
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you.
Not at all.
I had no problems in understanding.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I could hear, yeah.
Okay, then let me, since Professor Bolan is on board, I'd like to add that I very much agree with the importance of research on the soil carbon sequestration. I did not emphasize it very much in my presentation, but in arid areas where we are active, the soil carbon sequestration, especially in the deeper soil profiles, has implications also for the fertility of the soil. In that context, we study the possibilities which are offered by the agroforestry options, conservation agriculture options to enhance the organic carbon sequestration. Not only in the soil, but also in the below ground biomass, which is significant in arid regions. And more recently, we also looked into the possibility for the inorganic carbon sequestration, which seems to be an issue under the irrigated agriculture setting. So maybe there could be some synergies in our work in that respect.
All right, Professor Kamjina, thank you very much for your wonderful explanation and comments. I would like to invite Dr. Yong-ho Ko about resilience in marine ecosystem. As a marine ecosystem scientist, if you have a few words toward the resilience, what will be the current status and future perspective? Dr. Ko?
Yeah, in the coastal area, the most threat to marine organism is ocean acidification. For the microorganism having a calcium carbonate share, so ocean acidification decrease the pH and calcium carbonate saturation in the seawater, so it threatens the marine organism. So in natural process, upwelling or natural eutrophication decrease pH of the water column and the sediment. So up to now, we are focusing on the find more vulnerable area of this natural process. So, I mean, finding the area having a low pH or low carbonate saturation state, and also trying to figure out the anthropogenic CO2 uptake in this area, also enhance this pH drawdown. So as I told in my presentation, there's a systematic database about the current state of our coastal oceans. So we are focusing on the collecting samples and measure to provide the distribution of these carbonate parameters. So, yeah, after the intensive investigation, I think I could provide some information about the current state of marine ecosystem near Korean Peninsula.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ko. Now I would like to see if any speakers or panelists have a further question or comments. Professor Boland, do you have further questions or comments? If not, it's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Professor San. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor San. Just regarding Professor Florian Kraigsner and Carencia, I totally agree with your point about soil carbon sequestration as a strategy, because that is not the only strategy, because sooner or later we will be reaching the saturation. That's what's happening in New Zealand, because New Zealand, the soil organic matter has reached at more than 15%. So, you can't go on building soil organic matter. So even the European, target is not easy to be achieved every year. So it is a challenge. I totally agree with your point. And on top of that, Professor Carencia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You are absolutely right. There is a huge pool of subsurface soil carbon sequestration. It doesn't have to be exactly soil organic carbon, very much inorganic carbon, limestone or calcium carbonate or any other carbon. They have been putting a lot of effort in geosequestration, which is becoming a very challenging one because they couldn't find the exact substrate where they can put the CO2 without causing subsequent release. So therefore, in Australia, there are a lot of focus on improving the soil organic matter. Not exactly in relation to carbon sequestration, because the government is not keen on providing carbon credit, but more in relation to improving the soil health. We all know very well soil organic matter, in which carbon is around 57%, is the main player in soil health, in drought tolerance. So therefore, the government is putting a lot of effort in improving the soil organic matter, thereby improving the soil health, soil fertility, and crop productivity. In that process, we are sequestering a lot of CO2. And in Australia, agriculture export is almost number 3. So it's a major GDP for us. So any improvement in soil health will be good for our economy, good for our environment, and also has some social implication because that provides regional employment. So that's what we call soil carbon storage provide triple bottom benefits: economic benefit, environmental benefit, social benefit. Now there is one more benefit, we call it cultural benefit, because we have indigenous community. For them, land is sacred. So by protecting the land, by improving the soil organic matter, you provide cultural benefit. So that's what we call quadruple bottom: economic benefit, environmental benefit, social benefit, cultural benefit. So that's what I'm trying to say. Improving soil organic matter will be an important component of environmental resilience. But I totally agree with your point about other vegetation, subsoil carbon storage, and other integrated approaches. Thank you very much, Professor San.
All right, Professor Boland, thank you again for your insightful comments and wonderful suggestions for the further research in coming years. We have very limited time. However, I would like to see if speakers have any final few words. Dr. Kroxner, do you have final comments or a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Son. And again, thank you for having me there. I would like to particularly have 2 comments or suggestions to 2 speakers. Number 1, to Asia. I would really love to join forces here and have your insights coupled probably with our EPIC agriculture model, which originally also is an erosion model, which goes very deep into processes including soil, but also management, including irrigation, for instance. And hence it would be really interesting to combine your local knowledge and data with our global modeling efforts and roll this potentially also out over the neighboring countries, which might have similar conditions in terms of climate, soil, agriculture, systems, etc. This to you, and the other one is to Professor Wang Yelwan, where I would like to also congratulate for this nice overview on the mid-latitude region, but also on the network. And I saw there, I think he mentioned 37 interlinkages with SDGs, since this is also together with SDSN in the network. On the other hand, I also mentioned in my presentation that there are more ecosystem services to be considered, and SDG, there is also one on biodiversity, but also IPBES, so to say the biodiversity IPCC came up with this nature's contribution to people, which is also something that we might want to look into together, where these social and also cultural aspects that Professor Bolan now mentioned might be particularly considered with respect to ecosystem services. With that, I'd like to thank you again and say, well, have a good lunchtime, and I will go to bed now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kroxner. I'd like to see if Dr. Ko or Dr. Kim have any final words. If not, I'd like to see if Professor Kamzina has final words. Professor Kamzina?
In response to the suggestion to join forces from Dr. from Florian, my short answer is yes, I'm game. From my side, I also would be very much interested to see if it is possible to follow up on some of the hotspots which you identified, and even though Central Asia was not within this hotspot area, still it would be interesting for us to precise some of the predictions, climate change predictions for the area. So in that field, I think there could be a lot of synergies. Thanks for your suggestion, and yeah, have a good night rest.
All right, thank you, Professor Kamzina. Dr. Yuan, do you have any final words?
No.
No comment. Thank you. Finally, I see Professor Lee Woo-kyun, the director of OJERI, on screen. By chance, do you have any comments or final words, Professor Lee?
Yeah, thank you very much all for your participants. Dr. Son and Professor Son and Wang and Song and Professor Dr. Kroxner. We invited Dr. Kroxner to OJERI as a visiting professor from last October, I think. So for 1 year. You are real professors, so you need to always think of us. So, thank you again. And thank you, Dr. Kamzina, and all the presenters, Dr. Ho and Kim and Yuan and Dr. Wang. And thank you, Professor Nancy Bolan from Australia. Your back scene is so beautiful. Thank you very much again. Our OJERI has 4 actually research groups. So plastic and waste management and water management and climate change and ecosystem circulation and also middle latitude region network. So I found that circulation or circularity is very, very good, crucial factors or issues in these 4 research groups: the waste and water management and ecosystem and climate change. And then we need to do something for supporting good circulation in this ecosystem in middle latitude region network. So our OJD will do our best for having better research and network with you all, and hope that next year we can we can meet together and then have more active 4th AIC conference. Thank you very much again.
All right, thank you, Professor Lee. I guess it is a very late evening in Austria. I mean, very early morning, I guess, there. I'd like to close the discussion session. I really appreciate the wonderful comments and responses from all speakers and panelists. Today, we saw very interesting study results about resilience, the current status and future perspectives. The Asia Resilience Center will work on this issue for coming years also, and we hope to see you again soon next year. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good sleep.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Go
Thank
back
you.
to sleep, Florian. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. And thank you,
We'll
Professor Lee, for picking such a nice place, yeah, and for this conference. Perfect.
Okay, so finally closing here. So I want to thank Professor Sun for efficiently chairing the panel discussion and all the panelists for your kind input. Despite the limitations posed by the online platform, on behalf of Asia Resilience Center Secretariat and on my own behalf, I would like to commend all the participants and presenters for your excellent contribution to this conference. Thank you all for your efforts to make the 2020 ARC conference a big success. We would also like to convey our special thanks to Professor Lee, Director of AUJRI, and Professor John, Deputy Director of AUJRI, for logistically supporting the conference. And of course, this conference is not complete without thanking and recognizing the assistance of our technical team from XSync and the Secretariat staff from ARC for running behind to ensure that the conference is running smoothly. Looking forward, we hope that the 2021 ARC conference can be in person. Till then, from ARC, from Korea University here in Seoul, we wish you all and your beloved ones Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2021 in advance. The 2020 ARC conference is now officially closed. Thank you and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I should also thank you.